single-use
You are
plastic
right.
bottles. And they're trying.
Thank you for.
They're gonna go.
We're ready?
And even when
We're ready now?
Nine
Okay.
you rid of that last one, I can get.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Tourism Occupancy Tax Committee for March 26, 2024. And don't mind me, I'm very sick here. I don't have COVID because I got tested 3 times in 3 days, but I got bronchitis. But, okay, so I need a motion to approve the March 19th, 2024 Tourism Occupancy Tax. Ms. Runyon, Mr. Stroud, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. All right, so we'll open the privilege to the floor. Mr. McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you taking over this position and leading us. Before we started, I just I stated this before last week, and I see that we're moving, quite quickly on the Joseph Warren Museum. And I've done this past period of time a little bit of history on Joseph Warren, and I understand the need for this. My concern is that we have worked on getting this museum in a position where we could open on the 250th anniversary coming up. And 3 years we have worked on in my opinion, from what we started out with, was a simple little renovation on a building that we own, and it already exists. And now we're up to basically $1 million. All right, for this simple little renovation. And my concerns is that, which is always is taxpayers' money. Now, I've heard that the OC tax is not taxpayers' money, but we keep pulling from this pool. And so my further questions I will have, I just want to bring it to everybody's attention because we seem to be a little thin on members here today to vote on this.
We got a quorum.
I know we have a quorum, very thin quorum for something that is very important. But my question is, okay, so if we move forward with the money, because that was the question I brought up last week, is where are we going to get this money from? So now we all of a sudden say, whoo, let's grab it from OC tax, okay? 3 years ago, I asked, how are we going to finance this? Grants that we can look for, and how are we going to move forward? And now, once again, okay, we're down to the last minute. We have a bid, we have to accept, and we got to get it in before the 250th anniversary. Bad government, bad decisions, all right, end up costing taxpayers more money. But the other question I have is, we do move forward with this and get it done, how's it going to be run? Who is going to run it? And how much is it going to cost the taxpayers? So until we have all these answers, all right, I'm a no at the board for moving this forward, and I will be stating my opinions, but I have some major concerns of pushing this too quickly without all the answers that we need. I haven't even seen a bid, the bid that went out, and what the contractor is going to be doing for $1 million. I just, being in the business, I'd like to see something for the money that we're laying out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the comments, and I think there's a lot of people feel like you do. I'm one of them. I think it's time that we're gonna have to make some decisions with this OC tax. Of course, we're running short. People are coming in every day looking for more and more. And I think we're gonna have to have a meeting with the OC tax committee and the chairman and everybody else and come up with a solution moving forward. Right now, we're in a stagnant time, and I believe some of the stuff you're saying is yeah, but sometimes you got to do this stuff. And the only thing I will say as a comment, stop using the word taxpayers. This is not taxpayers' money. This is money that we collect from, like my place, occupancy tax, all the hotels, motels, restaurants that do that put people's bed in. That's where this money comes from. The normal taxpayer doesn't pay any unless you stay in my place for 2 nights and I charge you off tax money. So just, you know, I agree with you, what you're saying, but people hear that, oh, my taxes, my taxes. And I get that in my town too. So I'm just trying to emphasize, this is occupancy tax money. It comes from mostly all the tourists and the visitors that come from Warren County through the summer, through the winter. And it hurts when they don't come, or it hurts when we don't have snow or snowmobilers that pay a lot of money to stay here and things like that. So you're back up again. I'll let you.
May I do a follow-up that? And I respect that, and I have heard that before. All right. But my question is basically the tax dollars. You know, we take this tax dollars and we give it to people to bring in events in return. All right, put heads in beds and stuff like that. We are grabbing $1 million out of OCTAX, and I haven't even seen the heads and beds that are going to come from this museum. So if you want to go that way, then let's do it the proper way and put it through the channels to see what we're going to get for heads and beds and the calculations of that of using OCTAX money. Because we just grabbed $3 million and gave it to a function up in Lake George, which wasn't as successful as it should have been this year, but I am hopeful and I voted for it because I still believe in it. All right, but we're supposed to get that money paid back. So I'm just thinking before we head it out, you know, give this money out. I'd like to see what kind of return we have, and I'd like to see what this bid entails, because it was a simple little renovation.
Don, would you like to speak on that a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I'd like to say is, and I've been working with the Historical Foundation since I've been here this past year, and I know they were working on it long before that. We did look at grants. There are almost zero grants available for museums. Grants go to infrastructure projects, health, mental health, human services type things. We weren't successful in finding any grant that would offer any significant money beyond maybe $500 or $600, I believe. The second thing the foundation attempted to do, and I'm sorry there's no one here from the foundation today. Well, Frank and Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor Thomas, but they did try fundraising. They had a pretty concerted effort to try to raise funds to support this. And again, it's difficult to get donations for things like museums, particularly corporate foundations like to give money to other things. So we weren't successful in getting any funding through very few donations. So the two options we had were general fund and OCTAX. So this fits into tourism. That's why we chose OCTAX. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Mr. Stroud?
Well, I have to agree with Brad on almost every point that he makes, but there's a time element to this. And I think it's, even Brad, we all want to see this, you know, come to fruition. It will be a primary asset, I think, for Warren County, and people who want to visit Warren County will certainly visit the Joseph Warren Museum. Especially since it's unique. I know of no other in the country, a museum or institution dedicated to Joseph Warren. That's a sin. However, it is what it is. We're going to have it. Now, OCTAX is more than heads and beds. It's to try and draw visitors to our area. And the last study that we had, 38% of the visitors who visit the area visit because they want to see the cultural assets like museums and historic spots and things of that nature. And this certainly would be on the top of the list going forward. Now, why it costs $1 million when it's basically a fix-up of an existing structure, that's a legitimate, I mean, Brad's currently in the construction industry, and I was for half of my life. I'm having a tough time trying to, what's costing $1 million? We are supposed to sit down. and take a look at it. Which we will do, but there's a time element here. In other words, it's got to get to the committee. Possibly by the time we get to the Board of Supervisors, we could have some of Brad's questions answered. I think they're good questions. But since there's a time element here and we got a special committee meeting partly called because of this. I'm inclined to approve it, even though, like I said, I have to agree with Brad on just about everything he said, except for all of the tax allocations. It's not just for heads of beds, it's to try and attract visitors. Some of those visitors will be heads and beds, but not necessarily. I don't think anybody's going to come and stay overnight just to visit the Joseph Warren Museum, but it'll be one of the reasons why they come to the area.
Ms. Runyon, you have any comment on this?
Yeah, how'd you know? I didn't raise my hand.
You looked at me and I said, uh-oh.
Well, my only point is, we award money all the time to events that come and go. This event is permanent. Once this is done, it's there forever. So I agree with what you said. We will have the opportunity at a formal board meeting, a regular board meeting, to get those questions answered and do a final vote. But for right now, I'm inclined to vote yes to this.
Mr. Bean?
I do have concern because it's a lot of money coming out of Octax. And it's not that, look at, anytime I go someplace where, that I've never been before, I try to visit as many of the historical or, things where you can, historical knowledge base, learn something from it. But it seems like an awful lot of money for one project. I don't know. I do know, like we had a long conversation the other night about the cost of just building materials. A 1,000 square foot house is going to run you now about $300,000.
Yep.
So $1 million isn't going to take long to add up, but I'd be curious to see how it's broken out. Because that to me is that's a lot of money.
And Mr. Thomas, can I get some comments from you as treasurer and on this committee?
Sure. I'm not the treasurer.
I mean, I mean, the budget officer, sorry.
Well, the whole time we were, working on this project, we expected the bid to be between 600 and 700,000. It turns out that it's, more than a million. And again, I haven't seen the bid numbers. I haven't seen, what the reason is. I think $1 million is pretty steep. My own opinion is that it shouldn't all come from Octax. Maybe half and half from general fund. I don't think it all comes from. Say if you did half of it, I think it should be paid, paid out back to the general fund over the course of 5 years or 6 years.
Thank you, Frank. That's a good idea. Well, as you see, we have mixed information on here. Do we have just any time to, because I'd like to see the bid. Okay, well, I'd like to see the bid on this that came in on the construction job myself. We haven't seen anything. I don't know if we can get that and all of us can take a look at it, but I like Frank's idea. That sounds good to me, but,
I'm here, Gene.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I guess the bottom line is I can present the bids, but I'm not sure what any of you are gonna kind of glean from the bids. It's a lump sum contract. These were not unit price bids. So you're not gonna see that, siding cost $20 per linear foot as opposed to it should be $10, because that's not how it's broken out. It's a lump sum bid. So they gave us a lump sum price. If we're gonna ask the contractors to go back and break out those bids it may take a while, or they're gonna tell you, no, they're not, that's their bid. And then what we could do is we could certainly go back out to bid again and do it as a unit price bid. And I think you'll see, especially with the bids that are out right now, and they each know each other's bids, you'll see the prices double.
Yeah, that's what happened. You're right. I know. I've seen that before. Can I ask you just, not trying to put you on the spot, how many bids did we get back?
I think it was 3 for general contracting, 4 4 or 5 for the other 3, which would be the electrical, plumbing and HVAC.
All right, thank you. I think I saw a hand. Okay, go ahead.
Can I, you want me to go there?
Yes, please. Makes it easier for everybody.
So I got this history of Warren County at my swearing in. And I learned a lot, reading about Joseph Warren, and I absolutely agree. The man is well deserving of a museum. Warren County here was named after him. Again, I appreciate the history lesson. Couple questions. I understand Kevin's point that this is a lump sum bid. $1 million lump sum bid, that's hard to swallow to understand what the components are, but I do understand what you're saying. That said, I know that we asked for very specific things, and I'm quoting what I heard in the videotape of the last DPW meeting, as well as a recent meeting that we had this past Friday afternoon. Some Amish wood, some period windows. We're trying to make this a period, we're trying to make it look like the time this gentleman, was so prominent in the future of our country. I think I agree with a lot of you. I don't know how difficult it's going to be to get some of those details to see if we really need Amish wood, period windows. Can we maybe, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to take them out. I don't know what you're doing. But $1 million lump sum bid is a little hard to swallow, especially because hearing from the folks around the table, this started out as a simple renovation. Then there was a $600,000 concept design. Then I understood that there was an $850,000 bid at one point. So my question about these things is, this has been up for discussion by, I don't know, this committee, the historic committee. Why is it taken so long? And why are we so kind of under the gun to get this done now by the 250th anniversary of the country? Why did we get to this last minute? Why did we miss out on the $850,000 bid or the $600,000 bid? That's just a process question I'm asking that we won't be able to answer here, but maybe we can think about that as we move forward. Again, I don't know the timing of the $600,000 bid or the $850,000 bid, but and then my last question, and this is purely on me, this gentleman who shopped all, I think there's some 12 counties across the United States or towns, et cetera, where he is imploring us. He's supposedly got these wonderful artifacts. Has anybody validated these artifacts in the historical committee? Did they do that? They did? You're yesings.
If he's asking me the question, yeah, I can answer it. Do you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
The historical, and Frank can answer to attest to that as well.
Okay,
He does
Great.
have a sig- they have-
wonderful. Again, I think the guy is well deserving of a museum, and I'm proud to be living in Warren County that he was named after. I'm struggling with, as the treasurer, not the budget officer, but as the treasurer, I'm struggling with $1 million bid. I'm struggling with the timing of it, why we didn't act sooner, and I'm struggling with a lump sum bid where maybe, even if it does cost us, Kevin, a little bit more money, if we deconstruct it, maybe when we deconstruct it, we come up with alternatives for some of the period things, or, we can maybe save some money that way. And then finally, to Mr. Thomas's comments, we do have, keep talking about the 5.1 million that you pulled from the 2024 budget to make it balance. That's whittled down significantly, but there is a line item in there for $200,000 specifically for the Joseph Warren Museum. So there's $200,000 if you choose, if the board chooses to allocate it. And then I would also be supportive of a split between occupancy tax and the general fund. Not that that's my decision, but that's my thoughts. Thank you.
All right, just one more question, Kev. When, how can I say this? How long, do we have any time at all? Or is this bid gonna be dropped if we don't do something today?
If we gave them, we just sent a letter and see if they would hold prices for 60 days. I think that gets us from the bid date. When we receive bids, that'll get us to, I think, April 15th.
That's at least more time.
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, I like all the answers and all the discussion. That's why I'm pushing it all, making sure everybody's understanding, because it still has to go to finance.
Mhm.
And,
And then the regular meeting.
it's,
Board meeting.
and then the board meeting.
Yep.
So, it's gonna be close to that well, 60 days is, but
Yeah, I mean.
I
we-
think we have to make some kind of decision here.
We could certainly try to extend it longer with them, but my fear is, and again, I'm not, me personally, I'm not trying to cram this down
Yeah,
anybody
no, well, we understand that.
to do it. It's a project that was kind of put in my lap because we have the engineering background. We have the individuals who can inspect the project when the work's going on. This was brought up a long time ago when Ryan Moore was here, that they were discussing having this Joseph Warren Museum because this Shane Newell had this. So for me, I'm providing you with what we had in the plans, what came out of the Historical Society Committee as far as how they want to develop it. There can be cost probably looked at and say, okay, we can take them out. And most of the time, the general contractors will say, that's our cost. We're not going to shy away from what that cost was. Is it $1 million? There's asbestos in the building. There's other things that add those costs up. And there was never an $850,000 bid. So I don't know, there was a $600,000 concept plan. And by the time they did their final estimates as to what was going to take place, it turned around to be somewhere between that $700,000 to $850,000 range. With that being said, county staff are doing some of this work, all the excavation work, and demo outside the house, we're doing it all. So, I mean, we're trying to save some money, but the bids are what they are. And I know Brad does construction work. You can't tell me that you haven't seen anywhere from a 25 to 58% increase in cost for building materials, because it is. We've seen it on all our bids that have come in.
Well, something you just hit me is that asbestos stuff. That's not cheap.
It's not.
I learned that the hard way. That's not cheap to get out 4 feet of asbestos, 8 feet of asbestos. It's costly. So, all right, so one more, John.
Well, a couple things. One is Wick's law, New York State law. Any public project of 500 for Warren County. It's different for different other counties, for whatever reason. In New York City, it's different, but Wick's law says that any public project exceeding 500,000 or exceeding all the subcontracting of the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, that needs to be subcontracted separately. Can't be done by the general contractor. Has to be bid separately. That's Wick's law. So, sometimes it adds costs to the project, sometimes it takes away costs. All right, so that's one concern. I think we need to look into that. The other thing is I never looked at what went out to bid. I mean, Amish windows, that's the first time hearing. Could we go with comfort windows? The lentil, put a colonial lentil on top of it, 5/4 by 4, for trim. You're gonna look fine, as long as it's black. And they do make them in black and white. And, the house is gonna be dark gray, a bluish dark gray in color. So that would be fine. I don't know about these Amish windows. That's the first time hearing of it. So I never got a look at what was bid. I mean, $1 million just seems very excessive for what we're trying to do. But again, the concerning thing is which law.
I'll let you answer that a little, and then I got one more, and I'm gonna try to.
So
make
as
a
far as
decision.
Wick's law, that's why we have 4 contracts. It was put under Wick's law, so that's why I have 4 contracts.
Oh, but but.
They're not subcontracts,
I
John.
never got to see it.
Yes, they're not
So the
subcontracts.
Plumbing was separate, the HVAC.
That's
the
correct.
electrical was all done separate.
That's correct.
And so those are things we can look at. Those are breakouts.
Correct. But again, those are, you're not gonna see in that breakout, 1 toilet, 1 vanity. It's just a lump sum bid for the plumbing cost or for the HVAC cost. I certainly have all the plans, and the plans were, John, submitted to everybody on the committee for the Historical Society.
And I don't remember.
No,
I
okay,
don't know.
they were on there. As far as, there's no reference to Amish windows. Their reference to the 9 9 pane or 9 split windows that was, again, discussed in the committee meetings. And if it does reference Amish, and I think it was for the siding, it was or approved equal. That's what came out of it. So if the siding was a, pine, and it didn't necessarily say it had to be developed or cut by the Amish or created by, it was just something similar or approved equal. That's all it said in the bid. And we do that in bids all the time.
Okay, Mr. Bean.
I guess I'm just, I mean, I get it, 250th anniversary, but it almost seems like it's an artificial hard deadline. I mean, it's not gonna, the anniversary isn't just gonna be a one-day celebration. So it just seems like we're pushing for something. I'm sorry, but I guess that's kind of I'm looking at it from the standpoint that, all right, so the 250th anniversary is X date. But it's not like there's gonna be one celebration, and that's gonna be the end of it. So it just might, again, kind of struggling with the whole thing, I guess.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to address that a little bit, number one, I'm feeling like we're putting a DPW chief on task here. And, this is a project that he inherited from the Historical Society after 3 years of meetings to discuss it. There is a belief that during the 250th anniversary year, there will be a significant influx of tourists into this area because of the history here with Saratoga just to the south of us, and then some of the French and Indian War connections, that next year is going to be the big year. We'll always have the museum, but in order to capitalize on it, and that was the belief of the Historical Society, that they needed it in place. Kevin's been working against a tight deadline on this since we awarded money to do the design. The design was done to the specifications that were discussed in the Historical Society meetings about making it a period house, not just painting the house that exists today. Because you're going to have a museum, there are a lot of requirements that you have to do inside that house doesn't meet for like ADA compliance and a lot of different things that have to be done inside. And that's what probably has driven some of the cost. And since I've been involved in this, there has never been a discussion of a $600,000 bid. It's been like it was always, I think, $750 to $850 estimate. So it kind of came in $50,000 higher than our expected estimate. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, last chance. Anybody else have one more comment or not? All right, so the way I see it, and if you just want to go, and this is only me, I think we got to move forward on this. But I'd like if we can do it, beat me up if we can't. Stipulations that we listen to Frank Thomas, maybe we can go half from one and half from the other, or listen to the treasurer where she says she's guaranteed we got 200,000 in the budget. I mean, that would bring it down to 8. So, I mean, I think can we make a resolution to move forward to the full board and have extra
It goes,
comments on it at the board meeting?
yeah, the reason we convened this meeting was so we could discuss it with OCTAX.
Oh,
then
it's
it
got to
would
go to finance.
We
too,
could
right?
have gone directly to finance, but we decided not to do that. We appreciate the committee getting together to discuss this today. It'll go from here to finance and then for a full vote at the April 19th board.
All right, so can I make the resolution and saying, let's move forward with this from OCTAX committee with the caveat of maybe finding funds in different places. By the time we get to finance, we'll have that answer, I think. Is that fair enough to something like that?
This committee needs to decide how much you want to appropriate in OpEx. No other committee makes decisions on how.
Oh,
occupancy
okay.
works.
All
We
right.
don't allow other committees to do that.
Well, all right. So how do you want to word it then? I mean, Ms. Runyon,
What if you worded coming out of OCTAX for an amount not to exceed 800,000? Would that cover the 200 that's in the general fund?
I would do it that way.
Then that leaves room for if finance decides more can come from general fund, then we're covered.
Okay, is that all right with you, Mr. Chairman? Okay, so the resolution will come out of here as what tax cannot go past 800,000.
Mhm.
And at finance, they might be able to find other finances for the rest of it. How's that?
What if we can't find the other 200,000 that we need? It kills the project.
No, we have it in, the treasurer just said she's got it in the budget, right? Could you say that again, please?
Sure.
Before we move, so we all understand?
General fund has it.
So
There's a
just to be
budget-
clear,
budget line.
at the end of 2020, when we were doing the 2024 budget, Frank pulled out $5.1 million to make the budget work. And it was largely DPW, but there, if you remember, but there's also a line item in there specifically for the Joseph Warren Museum for $200,000.
Okay.
I'm saying it's up to the Board of
Yes, that's-
Supervisors
Right.
to make that decision, but
You're all
there is
right
a
with
line
that?
item in there.
All right, thank you for clarifying. So that's what the resolution is. We, as a tax committee, are gonna commit to 800,000,
Up to 8.
up to 800,000. Is that everybody? I see nodding heads. So I'll make a motion of that. I'll make the motion. Can I get a second? Mr. Bean, you want to second that? Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Thank you all. Very great meeting. Thank you for your comments there, Mr. McGowan. What's that? Yeah, now we're moving into the next one. The next one now is up to the treasurer for a resolution to hire a company called Granite to, they identify all Airbnbs in the area, and I hope, and I'm only speaking from my part in Lake Luzerne, we need a company to do this. We're finding that we're having trouble now finding people that have been doing it for a year, and they all swear nobody ever informed them about our rules and regulations.
Yeah.
So we'll let the treasurer give us a thing on it.
Apologies, I only brought 12 copies. No, I have to give this to these guys. This is for you guys. I'm happy to give everybody an extra copy. Oops. So this is the Granicus contract. You guys are familiar with Granicus. Mike Swan did work with them in 2021 and 2022. He, for $34,000 back in 21, 22, basically what Granicus does is it combs the internet over 70 plus sites. And it brought to our attention approximately 240 units that were not yet registered. From those 240 units, and again, for our $34,000, over the next 2 years, we recouped 500,000 in OCTAX, penalties, and interest. So it's not just about identifying them and having them pay go forward. Granicus also gets all of their history, so we can actually go back and recoup that. So that's what happened in 21 and 22. What I'm proposing in 2024 now, again, these contracts are 12 months in scope. Granicus is a software as a service provider. One other thing that's important to note in the 21, 22 work is it's important. A lot of people, including Mike Swan, was very upset that he felt he didn't get the value for the Granicus money that he put in. They were supposedly going to give us 1,500 listings and we only got 240 units. It's really important for you to understand those 70 plus sites that are out there. One unit can be on Airbnb, bookings.com, VRBO, and any one of those other 70. So it's through the deduplicating process that they come down from those 1,500 units and got us to the 200. I think it was more like 260, of which 238 were viable short-term rentals that we got the $500,000 lift out of. This year, oh, one other thing. So when I clarified that, my team, a lot of people were confused about that. So that was a big eye opener for everybody. When I asked them what we could do better go forward if we were to work with them, they're like, you paid us $34,000 and did 80% of the heavy lifting. We did not share any information with them. All the work that they did, they gave us. And then we did this Herculean manual effort to get these 240 units and then everything that goes about getting them registered, collecting taxes, et cetera. Granicus is a technological company and they are very sophisticated. I talked with Larry Ellman. We were reading our law, local law 5, a little too, we were handcuffing ourselves. we do have the flexibility to share our information with them, and I made sure that they have a SOC 2, which is a kind of like a gold star, if you will, of technology companies. It's basically a third-party provider comes in and makes sure that they have the privacy, they have the security. So none of our information is going anywhere. So with that, what I'm proposing, what Mike Swan paid $34,000 for one module, address identification, I am paying $40,000 for, so a slight increase for 3 modules. I'm getting address identification where they're going to be doing their job, not us, for that $40,000. So they're going to be doing all of the heavy lifting. Address identification. Again, it's the automated monitoring of 70+ short-term rental websites. They give us an online dashboard, gives us complete address information and screenshots of all of the identifiable short-term rentals. And we can use those screenshots when we go after them for non-compliance. And it's like suddenly, it's not just a letter saying, hey, you have to adhere to this. We're like, hey, we've got your property. We've got your calendar of rentals. You need to get, A, you need to register with us, or B, it's even good for late filers. That cost for just that module is $21,000. So that's a 38% decrease from what Mike Swan paid. And there's a reason for that. A, they're welcoming us back. That base cost is $54,000. We're getting a 40% discount on that. Just because we're returning, and we also have compliance already in place, so they're not going to have to do a full lift. In addition, because I'm supporting us going with 3 modules, I'll get to the other 2, we're getting an additional 20% discount. In addition, they've offered quarterly billing, which they don't normally do. We had to pay it all in one shot last time. What they're doing is offering us quarterly billing so that we can start to see, especially by leveraging them and not doing all the work ourselves, we can start to see the lift in income, in revenue receipts, and hopefully that will pay for itself before the end of the year. So that's the other reason we literally are paying $21,000 for that module versus Mike paying $34,000. The second module I'm supporting is the compliance monitoring. My guys just printed out 400 late notices, stuffed 400 envelopes. We're go forward, we're going to be able to design this in a process, and we're going to be able to push a button. And again, all of those parameters, I've got a lot of experience with system integration, et cetera, and system implementation. So again, my guys are very good, but they are spending a lot of their time on very manual efforts when their time could be really used on enforcement. And as you know, I've talked to a lot of you, we've got enforcement issues on the hotels and motels. I'd rather them be spending their time on higher value add strategic processes. So the compliance monitoring, what that does, it's the online monitoring of the STRs. And you'll see, Mr. Stroud, you'll be interested in this. And Lake George is not here. So Granicus is not only going to help us at the county level, but Granicus is also working with a few of our towns, i.e. Queensbury, also Lake George. At the county level, I don't care about zoning, but in the towns, they care about zoning, they care about fire, they care about sewer, things like that. Are we overtaxing, the properties? Granicus has these lower level, or these town interested items that I'll talk to it in a little bit, but right now that zoning I've crossed out. That's a town issue, not a county issue. In any event, ongoing monitoring of these STRs permits for permit reasons, making sure we're getting them registered. And then it's the automated systematic outreach to late and or illegal short-term rental operators. Again, we're automating a very manual process. So that's 11,000. And then plus the rental activity monitoring life. I think you might all be very interested in this. Right now, short-term rentals are kind of a honor system, if you will. How much they charge. There's also people that somehow, if you rent from the same person year on, year out, you kind of go around the Airbnb, or you go around and you just have one-on-one deals with these guys. The scope of this work in this module is it provides estimated occupancy and rental revenue for each property based on machine learning modules, automatically identifying audited candidates who are underreporting on taxes. So if I have a property up in North Creek and, I've got a calendar basically I block out those dates, whether or not I'm using it for personal use or whether someone's kind of circumventing the process. These guys can actually go into the calendars. They can look at estimates for people in those other areas that have similar properties, similar amenities, similar seasonality. And they give you a minimum, a moderate, and a high amount of money that that property should be generating. And we can go in and we can challenge based on what they are actually claiming is their occupancy tax. We can go in with real hard data to say, hey, based on our based on our algorithms, et cetera, we can challenge them basically. And then they have to prove to us again. And again, there's the whole calendar that we work with. Whether or not they're underreporting on taxes. So again, that's $8,000. So bottom line for $40,000, which is I think a 24% increase over what Mike Swan paid, I'm getting 3 modules. I'm highly automating the process. And I think the goods are on the next page, deliverables. Mr. Garrity asked me earlier this week, Christina, what are we really going to get here as a lift from this Granicus? Didn't Mike get really? These short-term rentals are changing every single day. And I spoke with Deb Runyons. I mean, there are people from out of the state that are coming in and trying to buy large parcels of land to put as many properties as they can on it. So again, the towns are governing that, and that's completely up to the towns, but there's big shifts in these things. And then just people coming in and buying them, not necessarily for personal use, one-off houses. They want to do short-term rentals. So here in the bold, so first pass right now, as of January 2024, we have approximately 1,100 short-term rentals. Granicus has identified approximately 1,700 for Warren County. That's approximately 600 potentially unregistered short-term rentals that we need to vet. Don't get me wrong, but again, we found 240 units in 21-22 that equated to a $500,000 lift. This is basically, according to Granicus, they envision anywhere from 283 to 637,000 based on their analysis. So I think that this investment, I've given you the details. I hope you see the value. And I think that basically it will more than pay for itself. I've given you, these are all the deliverables. I've made sure that they're smart, they're specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-based. With the rental unit table tracks, again, it's a specific dashboard visual where you see all of the people who are non-compliant. You see how many letters went out. You see, it all tracks the communication, and then it tracks how long it took to get them in compliance. Again, automating a very time-consuming manual process and replacing it with higher value add monitoring and oversight controls. The rental activity monitoring, I got to be honest with you, I'm still learning about that, but I like it conceptually. I really like it because it's going to give me the opportunity to go back on some people that we think, and we have some that are systematically underreporting. They literally write up they tell me that, well, we don't take credit cards. We're cash only business. Exactly. And then they give us their cards, their hotel cards or their short-term rental cards, and they handwrite them in, and it's the same person writing in, 70 cards, and so it's going to give us a little extra muscle, if you will, to go back after some of these guys. And it targets, and it will target specific areas for us to go back after, and then to also audit, which will get us even closer. And then the next steps is to discuss Granicus as software as a system, software as a service, like, do we want to do it this year? I want to see what we do this year. I want to see what the results are. Then next year I'll come back to you and say, hey, I really think that this, hopefully I'll be able to convince you that this makes sense to do this on an ongoing basis. And then additionally, and I do need, there is an opportunity for me to negotiate at the county level that will help the towns. So right now, Queensbury has a contract, Lake George and Lake George Village have contracts. If other folks, want to get some of this technology, I will be able to get you'll still have individual statements of work, but I'll be able to get you either under our contract or a much better deal. Any questions?
Right. I don't have a question, but I think this is one of the best information that we've gotten on this stuff in years, and I applaud you for that. And as a supervisor of a town, we need the help. We can't afford some of these prices, to get back. So we can get some of that information, and I'm gonna talk over my head now. And I'd say like Town of Lake Luzerne would offer a couple of $1,000s from our money to you to give us this information, so that we can move forward, because we're battling with a couple of people right now that's over a year. And I've been talking to them personally. They all swear they never heard of collecting
Right.
tax. They never heard of coming to get a permit from the county or the town. So, what do you do with those people? So,
We'd be happy to work with the individual towns. And again, you would each town could have its own
yeah.
dashboard. So again, we'd be happy to teach folks about how to use it, how to leverage it most effectively. Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. And I do
Because-
think it would help a lot.
And I think this is a great idea for this 40 grand. I think it's a win-win for everybody. That's only my opinion, guys. I'm not trying to tell anybody to do anything. But, knowing the problems I'm having, I think this was a great thing for the county. And I applaud you in pushing this price. And I will have to ask, anybody have any questions now? Well, let's start, Mr. Stroud.
No, I agree too. I think it's a good idea to go with them. And as the treasurer pointed out, the town of Queensbury and the town of Lake George are both with Granicus. The town of Queensbury for multiple reasons. I mean, we have 5 zip codes. So that it is confusing to outsiders that somebody in Queensbury will have a Catskill Bay address or a Fort Ann address or a Lake George address or a Hudson Falls address or a Glens Falls or even a Lake Luzerne address. Yet they're in Queensbury. So they've given us a good product. They've sorted through that and being able to determine through a GPS that it is in fact located in Queensbury. But we also have a complaint module and a code compliance module. For example, if they're advertising 8 parking spaces and we've only allocated 2 parking spaces for them, then they give us an alert. So, it was a little rough going with Granicus, getting them on board, but we finally did. We're happy with the product, the end product, after wrestling with them a while. I think it's a good idea. The treasurer has to go with Granicus on the county wide basis.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud. Ms. Runyon?
One of the issues we have in our town is the difference between someone who purchases a house solely for short-term rental compared to sometimes occupying it themselves. And we have people who are getting star credit and enhanced star credit on properties. They never live there. And we know that because our town is so small, we see that, we know it. We can't prove it, but we know it. So maybe with this calendar idea, it might be able to reflect how many days they're there. I mean, I don't know how to prove that they don't live there, but we know it. And to get enhanced star on a very expensive property is just not right.
Mr. Bean?
Yeah, I mean, we have a young woman in our town that is a property manager, and I don't even know how many properties she manages. It's a lot. And she's convinced that there are at least 200 additional short-term rentals in Johnsburg that are not following the rules. That's a lot of properties. And as far as the treasurer is concerned, I'm a yes, absolutely.
Mr. Thomas, as our budget officer?
I think so.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to move? Okay, Mr. Strauss will start. And Ms. Runyon will second it.
If I
And
can make a
any other-
clarification,
go ahead.
to make sure that the motion is set to fund up to the $40,000. Currently, as the resolution is written, it has the 39,894, unless that's the.
I got them down further.
Okay.
Sorry, I
All
did.
right,
I
so
got them
then the
down a little
resolution will
further.
Stay as is, I apologize.
So that is accurate. The first
Thank
one
you.
you got was 40, but I managed to.
All right,
Okay.
so the resolution will be for 39,894. All right, so I got a motion, and I got a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Uh,
Bye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Pass. Thank you all. All right. Do you have any other discussions?
Not at this point.
No, because it comes out of the 50,000 contract, the contract line that we have $50,000.
No, I understand about Granicus. What about the 800,000? Do we need to?
No, 'cause right now we don't know.
No,
we-
we'll-
because
before
of
it
the
comes to-
payment,
yeah,
we
no,
don't
no.
have-
All right, so we have no other discussions, no referrals. Privilege to the floor. Mr. McGowan?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I have to say, really, this was a good meeting all around and thank you to our treasurer for this, Granicus, sounds like another great opportunity for the county and to help out all the towns. But as I was sitting here listening to the meeting and Superintendent, Joe's dropped off, the plans. Unfortunately, I need a magnifying glass to read some of that fine print. But I could see pretty much in he's going to send me the bid quote. But I was thinking, as an option of, the 250th anniversary coming up, if we don't get to a point where this is going to be done, we also can look into an alternative place to use. And I'm thinking, like the Hyde Museum puts on, they bring in, art shows and this and that. We could do this as a temporary thing to grab those people. So I'm just thinking if, out of the box, or if there's other towns. And I'm just not thinking Glens Falls, but I know Glens Falls also has an historical museum right on, is it Glen Street, isn't it? I think so. John might know, but Supervisor Stroud might know that better than me, but Glen Street, yeah, Route 9. Sorry, did I say Route 9? I probably did. But I'm just thinking, out of the box and just get other options there that maybe we can look for an alternative place until we can get all the figures worked out. But thank you again.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Thank you all. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Bean,